bear with us. It's not easy for any of our guests today to be doing this, living under the most appalling situations. I mean, we'll be talking to all three shortly, but Bahzad, for instance, was just telling us that he hasn't had any electricity since this morning. Well, I'm afraid, as we all know, right across Gaza and the occupied territories, not having electricity, not having basic public services is unfortunately part and parcel of people's daily existence. But we really wanted to bring our three guests to you today so they could tell us what the situation really is for Palestinians in Gaza. And we wanted to talk to them about the situation and how it could best be resolved. And on this day, just worth mentioning, perhaps before I do introduce our guests, that this is a day in which President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa has been interviewed by France 24 and has said in very, very strong and uncertain terms the situation in occupied Palestine is deeply reminiscent of the worst periods of apartheid in South Africa. So if President Cyril Ramaphosa of South Africa can say that Israel is practicing apartheid, then I think we can be pretty clear that Israel is practicing apartheid. You're not interested in any sermons from me, but I wanted to move on and to introduce our guests. And firstly, I'd like to introduce Raed Shakshak. And Raed is a Palestinian activist and writer. Hi, Raed. Thanks very much for joining us. He's an outreach coordinator for We're Not Numbers. And he's passionate about the arts of storytelling and public speaking. And he's constantly engaged in youth empowerment activities and opportunities. And Raed likes to focus on matters that most people don't pay attention to, such as animals and symbolic little details. You're a man after my own heart, Raed. I try to pay attention to symbolic things that few people are interested in. I'm always interested in things, and I think we've got to be really passionate about those things that we love and we're very interested in. And I'd like to also then move on, if I may, to introduce Hala Shoman. Hala is a dentist, a social anthropologist, as well as a human rights activist. And since 2012, he's volunteered in different fields related to youth empowerment, health and gender-based violence. And Hala also is a regular demonstrator and volunteer paramedic and surgical assistant during the Great March of Return. She wants to see a future where we all live and where everybody lives without occupation, discrimination, and injustice. And if I may introduce Bahzad, and Bahzad is a medical doctor from Gaza. He studied Masters of Child and Adolescent Mental Health at King's College in London in the UK, and now he's working as a mental health doctor at the Gaza Community Mental Health Programme, a well-known NGO working in the field in Gaza. I'm Mark Seddon, and I used to be the Al Jazeera correspondent at the United Nations, and I subsequently went on to work for the United Nations. I worked for the Secretary General Ban Ki-moon and for the former President of the General Assembly, Maria Fernanda Espinosa. I've taken a long interest in issues of Palestine, the question of Palestine, the United Nations calls it, and I think a lot of people are looking out there and hoping that UN interventions too can help bring a permanent settlement and an end to the occupation of Palestine. So thank you all three of you yet again for joining us. We're very, very grateful. Right, if I might, I wanted to turn to you just first of all. I know all three of you are in Gaza, but I think it's very difficult for us elsewhere in the world to truly understand what it's like to live under a military bombardment. Can you tell us what life is like in Gaza right now?
Yes, sure. It is my pleasure. First, thank you so much for having us here with you, and thank you so much for trying your best to amplify Palestinian voices from Gaza. Unfortunately, I wish I could say this is our first war. It's not. This is our fourth war. We had the first one 2008, the second one 2012, the third one 2014, and right now the year is 2021. And unfortunately, we are experiencing these bombardments again on daily basis. All of this has started 10 days ago. The war started. We've been getting bombed every single day from the morning till the night. It doesn't even stop at night. They just keep starting. They keep going. They keep bombing us. So, for instance, you would be sitting at home, and in addition to the crisis of losing internet, losing water, losing power, and during these days, we barely actually get power, so you don't actually know what is exactly going on all the time. But here's the deal: you're sitting at home assuming you are safe, but actually you're not, because let's face it, no Palestinian in Gaza under attack is safe. Like, even if you're at home, and out of nowhere you're gonna be hearing those strong sounds of bombardments, and they're going to be going out of nowhere. If you are living in a building like I am, you're going to feel the building is shaking, and which is really scary. Like, if you are sitting on your bed, or if you are just sitting like on a sofa or whatever, you're going to feel that shaking. So basically you're going to freak out. So you need to take action at this point, because you're not only responsible for yourself, you're responsible for everyone in your family and everyone around you. Like, for example, you gotta be aware of the fact that you need to open the windows, so that when that bombardment takes place, the glass doesn't break and it doesn't hurt you, doesn't hurt your family. You need to pay attention to your kids, to your parents, the old people, the women, because those are the people who actually get scared the most. So the situation at night here, if I may add, um, people here in Gaza don't sleep at night, which is a fact. These three bombardments, these three warplanes keep striking 24/7, especially at night. This started in Ramadan, and during Ramadan, they would attack at the time when the family gathers together to have iftar or suhoor. And this is actually a habit, a dirty habit, if I may, so inhumane, that they actually do every single time they attack us. After Ramadan, we had Eid. Of course, there was no Eid in Gaza. They would be bombing people like wherever they are. Like, even if they were like in a moving car, they would bomb them. If they were sitting together, like in the street, they would bomb them everywhere. So basically, they would be bombing after midnight. That's when they actually extensively bomb Gaza. And unfortunately, we get terrified, because when you lose power and you are like in the middle of the darkness, and all you can see is the Gaza of Gaza lighting up in red, and they're like warplanes are flying and they're making all the noise, and you already feel the war, but there is absolutely nothing that you can do. And these bombardments actually would start after midnight. They would keep going till the morning. And the people of the Gaza Strip actually started to get used to that. So, like, they would actually not sleep at night. But we actually got to the point where the Israeli warplanes would not bomb us at the beginning of the night. They would bomb us at the end of the night, in the morning, when we are totally exhausted, when we really want to sleep. We've been working all day long. We didn't sleep at night. The time of the morning where we are supposed to take some rest, that's when they would bomb us so hard. This happens every single day. And this is how I woke up today. I woke up to the sounds of these bombardments, just like I've been doing for the past 10 days.
So, right, I mean, for people who are tuning in from around the world, I mean, it is the case that when it comes to Gaza, for many years now, people haven't been able to leave Gaza unless they're given permission by the Israelis, and they can't go to Gaza unless they're given permission. And Gaza is, of course, one of the most populated parts of the world, densely populated parts of the world. I think it's something like the third most densely populated. I mean, quite extraordinary, the concentration of civilians. And on top of this, we have this intensive aerial bombardment. So, I mean, you were just telling us there what it's like to wake up to this horrific sound and to see the carnage around you. But what about basic supplies? I mean, what about basic supplies of food and water? And of course, we're already having issues. I think Hala, you've had some issues with your electricity just now. I mean, to tell us something about the most basic, the most basic needs of life.
Yeah, okay. So definitely here nowadays, with wars going on, for instance, if you want to think about water, we get water for 2 to 3 hours every 3 or 4 days. And that means when power comes on, you gotta use your water motor to actually fill the water tanks. And during this time, you actually overwhelmed with so many things that you gotta do simultaneously. You gotta be doing laundry, you can do that. You gotta like you gotta be working, for instance. Like for me as a citizen journalist, I should be working, I should be telling the truth about what's happening here in Gaza, I should be representing Gaza. But at the same time, I'm being overwhelmed with the power cuts. When I get to 3 to 4 hours a day of power, that's a very limited amount of power that I get. During this time, like I would want to charge all my devices just to make sure that I don't run out of battery. I would be recharging my power bank, and I would realize that a lot of people are freaking out. Like the depression is increasing, and it got me to actually to the point where I feel like I can't actually go to a market if there is any market to actually get food and supplies. So at the meantime, I want you to understand that people are depending on canned food, frozen food, because people cannot go to markets. We don't have markets at the meantime because it's so dangerous to actually have a market at the meantime. When you talk about like this point, it's really related to another point that I want to get to it, which is the fact that we're talking about a huge number of people who actually evicted their homes at the meantime. So no one's actually going to be worrying about water when they have already affected their home. So if you talk about what happened here in the Palestinian days, we're talking about 48,000 Palestinians. This is a report by the UN, by the way, who had to leave their homes, and they actually headed to shelters. And when I say shelters, I'm not talking about some shelters we have in Gaza for protection, because we don't have that. I'm talking about the UN schools, which, by the way, are also under the strikes, and they're also are not safe at all, and also always threatened. So at the meantime, I mean, it would be, and forgive me for saying this, it would be really ridiculous for me to be complaining about having water cuts at the same time that my people is being murdered, at the same time my people is literally being massacred. And like I feel like I would be totally insensitive to talk to the world about, oh, I didn't have power today, while there are like, as I said, 48,000 Palestinians who actually are homeless at the meantime. So yeah, I mean, I know we're talking about things, small things. I know they really, really matter.
Well,
but
they're big, right? I'm going to. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I want to, because Hala is cutting in and out. I wanted to, if she's still there, I wanted to go to you, Hala, if I may, and to ask you, what is the situation where you are, and also if you can tell us something about, how buildings and people are being targeted, and if there's any difference this time to what happened the last time Gaza was under attack.
Hi, Mike. Thank you for having us. Sorry for the internet cut. There were so many bombardments around the area, and we had electricity and the internet down. We had to use a battery, so we had the internet, but I might get cut in any time. I don't know. The situation is horrible and terrifying everywhere around Gaza Strip since the beginning of the aggression. It's a continuation of the aggression that have been going since 1948 by the Israeli colonial apartheid state. However, it gets more aggressive and aggressive with time. We've been under continual missiles and airstrikes with many warplanes since more than a week now. Many people have been killed, murdered and massacred. Whole families, more than 13 families now, are all wiped because they were bombarded while they were sleeping in their houses, looking for safety. Around 65 children have been killed until just near me, like 5 minutes walking from me, a friend of mine was killed with her husband, two children, Mariam, who's 3 years old, Zaid, who's 5 years old. They were all massacred with huge missiles that showered over their building at 2 a.m. while they were sleeping, looking for a little bit of bombardment the neighborhood, and they all died. However, Mariam, years old, the child, is still missing. We don't know where exactly her body is. It just vanished. So the situation is very aggressive. it's more aggressive than, I can't say that it's more aggressive or I don't know, but it's very severely aggressive, especially because the Israeli army started bombarding the residential huge towers from the beginning, which was their promise from the last 2014. They said they would start exactly from the point they finished, and they fulfilled their promise. They started from residential buildings, they started from massacring whole families, around 64 child while being terrified from the occupation. Most of those children were actually traumatized and having a trauma treatment because of the whole continuous aggression of the last years. However, now they're killed. They're just
unimaginable. And I'm just thinking about the older generation in this country who lived through the bombings of in the Second World War, when British cities were bombed. It didn't happen every single day and every single night. But look, before we're getting a number of people sending in their messages to you. Let me just go through some of them. Salam, Carol Kizam says, Salam from Malaysia. We have solidarity from London. Nur Al-Wata says that. And we have Lindsay Hill has sent this, because there's solidarity actions are happening all over the world, which you'll know about. You will have seen the Italian dockers who refused to load those ships full of weapons. Well, in Britain, it's just been announced in the past few minutes, the Fire Brigades Union, which represents firefighters, it's released a statement, and they said they're refusing to cooperate with police operations to remove Palestine Action activists from the roof of an arms factory that exports arms to Israel in Leicester in England. So, you know, there are solidarity actions happening around the globe. You know about that. But I just wonder if one more question, Hala, before I move on. I mean, can you tell us something about the situation in the hospitals in Gaza? I mean, we've had mention of UN facilities that have been hit and schools have been hit. What's the situation in the hospitals?
The situation in the hospital is terrible. So many casualties are arriving to hospitals, more than our capability of, our capacity. Then we're understaffed. We don't have enough number of staff to support all those numbers. We don't have enough operation rooms. We don't have enough beds for the multiple, like if we had 200 in the Shifa hospital, the main hospital, we have only 150 number of beds. However, the casualties that arrive on average day are more than 500. So we don't even have beds for those who are injured. We don't have enough staff to take care of them, triage them, emergency dealing with them. The only way to deal with the huge number of casualties and the complex nature of these injuries is to do the emergency just needed things. So to stop the bleeding or something. However, they are very situations. They need trauma professional surgeons. They need maxillofacial, reconstructive surgeons, plastic surgeons, orthopedics, and other very complicated surgeries for them. There are different injuries. We're facing crushed injuries because most of the people who are come after their residential place where they're sleeping or hiding have collapsed over them, like 8 tower, 11 or 12 or whatever. They're all crashed together. So we would find them with a crushed injury, trauma amputation, penetration injuries for abdomen and chest, multiple sharpened injuries in children, in elderly, in women, in men, in everyone. We have head traumas, and we have excessive bleeding and people who bleed for hours before our capability to reach them. Because there's two issues that the paramedic facing. The first one is that the main hospitals or hospitals in Gaza, the Israeli army is attacking the streets and residential areas around them with airstrikes, so the ambulances wouldn't be able to go and pick people or to come back from the streets because they're. The second issue is that Israeli army, colonial army, before bombarding those residential buildings where people are living and staying, they would bombard the streets around them. Then they would bombard those buildings. So when the ambulances try to go there and rescue them, they wouldn't be able. And when they go, they would find people under crashed 10 floors of the house. They will try to reach them. Some other friend of mine, whose name is Dua, was in one of those buildings at the main city of Gaza. And she stayed for more than 12 hours with her family under the rebels of their building. They found her after 12 hours. It was her husband, 40, and her 3 kids, 8 and also 4 years old. The 4 of them were found dead. However, her only 3rd child, whose name is Aziz, and he's only 11, is protected by the body of his dead father for more than 12 hours alone, crying, and he found also severely injured, but happily he's now getting better after having operations. So this is not also, sorry.
No, I'm just saying this. It's absolutely shocking to hear this. So appalling, and I'm just wondering, what about medical supplies, extra aid getting in, the Red Crescent? I mean, is that getting through, or is that being blocked at the border with Gaza, Israel? What's happening there?
Okay, first of all, to highlight the situation, there were more than 22 medical institutions have been bombarded directly, so they were damaged, to be honest, by the Israeli army's aggression. The main hospital for COVID testing center have also been bombarded, so we don't have any ability to test people. Many countries are trying to send us medical aid because we're understaffed, under-equipped, we're zero stock. We don't have enough material with all of this number of casualties, more than 1,500. However, the Israeli allowing them to get in. Borders are, all Gaza is under siege since around 2006 and 7. So around 15 years it's closed, and now they're restricting the entrance of the medical equipment, medical personnel, and anyone who's trying to help. Something have entered from WHO, but this is not enough at all in comparison to crimes and the number of casualties and the needs.
Yeah. Well, I wonder if I might actually go to you, Bahzad. You've been very patient, and thank you. But and I can actually hear the sirens either behind you or we're hearing the sounds behind you. We can get some idea of what having explained the situation, some ideas of what might be happening. But Bahzad, tell us about the mental health issues of people. I mean, to live through this bombardment that's gone on for days now and see the death and destruction around. What is the situation? What is the situation with people? How are they coping? And what are the effects of on people's mental health, do you think?
Okay, thank you, Mark, and thank you for everyone all over the world who is supporting us and standing for solidarity with us. Mark, to answer your question, I'm going to illustrate briefly about the population of Gaza. Gaza is a very small area. It's part of the occupied Palestinian territories. Its base is 360 square kilometers. More than 2 million people are living there right now. 50% of them are under the age of 18. This means that 1 million people are children. And you heard Raed, you heard Hala. Imagine all of this happening to 1 million children in a very small besieged area. So I think it is not surprising, or let me so it's an evidence to reality that Gaza has been living a mental health crisis for the past 2 decades now, and it's really shocking um, that this has been happening for almost 20 years now, and no like strong or significant intervention has been done to Palestinians in Gaza. Gaza has been under complete blockade since 2006. It's closed from air, land, and sea. There's massive travel restrictions. Gaza have been through severe numerous escalations in 2008, 2012, 2014, and now this is a very massive one in 2021. People here are living under a very harsh living conditions. Gaza is one has a record of people living under poverty line that is the highest all over the world. In 2018, more than 56% of Gazan population living under poverty line. In terms of mental health issues, a report published by the Save the Children in 2018 stated that almost 70% of school children in Gaza have a marked psychological distress. This include depression, nightmare and terrors, anxiety, anger, need to be isolated. So it's in the very simple words, it's a mental health crisis that what Palestinians in Gaza are living right now. But this is, and this, it is a very unique and special during times of escalations, because as it said, you like the adult, they're supposed to be the strong. You are unable to be safe yourself, but you're supposed to pretend this role in front of your family, in front of your kids, in front of your nieces. You know, I'm a medical doctor and I've studied child mental health. I'm working with, in my current position, I'm working with the children. And I have this case. It was a very active, promising 17-year-old teenager female. She came to my clinic 1 month ago with a complaint of recurrent thoughts and obsessions about death as a result of COVID pandemic. So a part of our work is what we call talk therapy. So from session to session, I was talking with her, is convincing her that all of the evidence available from all over the world that you don't have any comorbid diseases, you are in a safe age, the death risk for you is very minimal. But I was thinking about this girl right now, because I achieved like a very good progress with her in treating her death thoughts initially. But what if she came after this escalation ends and asked me with complaints of death as a result of bombardment?
Yes.
What? Yeah, I myself, I don't know how to answer she or to answer her, because no one is safe. This is the very like harsh reality, but no one is safe. There is no guarantee in safety. I can't tell you what I'm going to do after 2 hours, what I'm going to do tomorrow. So I think I'm going to be like to lie or to cheat her to tell that everything is going to be fine. I can't imagine myself doing this. So this is I hope this is a very brief description about the current mental health for the general population in Gaza. And for children, you can imagine how it would be massive, because the children have less defense mechanism, are less able than adults to tolerate all of this, to deal with this. You have seen, I think you have seen many videos from children in areas of bombardment that were crying, were shouting, were desperate, were staring, were isolated. And you know the problem this is that our children keep asking why is this happening? What's wrong with with myself to face all of these this dangerous life. You know, as a child, the world is limitless for you. You don't have any boundaries, and when you grow up in there's enforced boundaries on you, in form of killing, in form of bombardment. You start questioning yourself about your life. Do I need this life or not? This is a very hard to say, but this is a reality.
I'm thinking that, you know, for many years, people have remarked about Gaza being perhaps the world's biggest open air prison, and the way that you're explaining what it is like in Gaza now and for young people is immensely powerful. We see so many images, and of course, in recent years, we've seen many terrible images also from Syria. And we're seeing them now from Gaza and young people. But what makes it so powerful is when you actually talk about an example, and the example there of the young woman who came to you as a patient with fears of dying, and you putting her fears to rest, but then she faces this new reality around her, is truly shocking, because you just mentioned the pandemic. I mean, the rest of the world is transfixed by the pandemic, and we're kind of almost forgetting that when it came to Israel-Palestine, Israel vaccinated everybody in Israel, but it didn't vaccinate the Palestinians, the people it occupies and is responsible for. And on top of that, the people it occupies and is responsible for, it's dropping bombs on right now. And so it's immensely powerful. And we have got questions. This has come from Alan Madison. And I'm going to put it to you, Bahzad. Alan says, are there people on the ground logging possible war crimes? Are they recording possible war crimes? Is that taking place? Collecting evidence?
Yeah. My answer is this. Like, in my opinion, I don't think that it is need like people on the ground to record this, because it's all seen in the media. It's all now seen on the social media. It's obvious. It cannot be hidden, but it just need like a firm action, a courage action to admit that this is happening. And I think an example of this, a Goldstone report after 2008-2009 war, he stated that Israel has committed war crimes and possible crimes against the humanity in its assault in Gaza. What's happened? Nothing.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not like pessimistic, but this is the reality. People, I believe that there are a lot of courageous, like journalists, photographers who take very terrifying and hard photos and videos that maybe you can. I don't know if you hear bombardment or not, but they caption very hard videos and photos that may be considered as war crimes, and they are going to publish it, like what's happening in the Great March of Returns, what's happening in 2014, what's happening in 2012. But we are publishing, but we are missing the firm and courage action to set people who are doing this accountable.
I'm sure that frustration and anger is reflected right across the occupied territories. The international lack of action, if you like. I understand the International Criminal Court is talking about proper investigations, and I know there's resistance from some countries. But it's also the case. We will, by the way, just to mention this, on Monday, be interviewing Mr. Jan Kavan, who's a former president of the UN General Assembly. Has been very clear that there are war crimes being committed, and he will say so quite publicly on Monday. It all may help. Raid, if I can come to you and you can hear me. I know you've got your hand up, and I was genuinely coming to you. By the way,
I just want to comment.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay, I just want to comment on the situation when it comes to the press, the journalists.
Yes.
The fact is, like, the whole world right now is protesting in so many countries and so many cities around the world, and everyone is standing with Palestine. People are going out and they're chanting free, free Palestine. People are using the right hashtags, Gaza under attack, Sheikh al-Jarrah, free Palestine, all of that. The reason all that is happening is because, yes, we Palestinians are doing our best to document everything that's going on right here. But at the same time, I would like to make it clear that not even journalists are safe. I mean, if a journalist goes out and he's holding his camera, or like if whether he's going live or he's just documented that with photos and videos, they are always targeted. And the fact is, just a few hours ago, like this day, I woke up to the news of a Palestinian journalist. His name is Yusuf Abu Hussein. He was killed just today. He is a Palestinian journalist. And the fact is Israel, when they were bombing these towers in Gaza, they were focusing on those towers that have media offices. This way, they actually are trying to silence us. Like they're trying to kill the journalists so that journalists would be really afraid to go out to document and take action. They're actually trying to silence us, the activists, by using like the bombardments to actually slow down our internet, to to cut the power, so that we wouldn't be able to be live like we are right now with you and to speak about the situation. So I think that yes, the whole world is taking action right now because of the bravery that the Palestinians have been showing, especially this year, this war, as everyone has got their smartphone and everyone is able to take photos and videos, and everyone's able to go live and to actually speak to the world. And from my personal experience, and I'm sorry for talking too much, but not only we Anat numbers have we been doing this, but also Satwi Anat numbers have been witnessing tens and probably even hundreds of Palestinian activists talking about use like me using the English language and other languages as well to go live on Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube, on so many other platforms, and they are talking to other people and they are telling human stories like I am right now, right here with you, telling you the story of the Palestinian journalist Yusuf Abu Hussein. Like even though he
this is very, very powerful. That is news. It's news for all of us. And thank you for bringing it to the world's attention. We did see, of course, the military attacks on the Al Jazeera, Associated Press, and other news organizations building. Many of my former colleagues at Al Jazeera know that building very, very well, and have been absolutely appalled by what has happened. There's been some very, very strong reaction from the Foreign Press Association in New York, from media organizations right across the world. Muted responses from many governments, not much from the British government when journalists are being attacked. You would have thought at least they might be concerned about media organizations if they don't seem to be particularly concerned about civilians. But that's what we are seeing. And it's, but your point is a very powerful one. The news and the reality is being brought to us by people such as your brave selves who have come on. And when the mainstream media was caught out, and this is what I was going to ask you about next, actually, if I may, Raid, because what we saw very interestingly a few days ago was an announcement by the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, that they were on the verge of a ground invasion of Gaza. And this was faithfully reported by mainstream media organizations around the world, including the Washington Post, newspapers and broadcasting corporations that have this great pride in being very independent and powerful organizations, but they had been duped, quite deliberately duped. And they didn't have journalists on the ground. They didn't have journalists on the ground. Associated Press might have, Al Jazeera, others in Gaza, but the Washington Post didn't have a journalist in Gaza. So they ran this propaganda. So, I mean, how do you see this kind of citizen journalism developing, right? I mean, how do you see, because it's been very powerful.
Yeah, definitely. The fact is, as a part of my job in Minute Numbers, as the outreach coordinator, we've been getting a lot of requests to have speakers from Gaza to actually speak to the entire world about what is happening. The fact is, Israel controls the borders here, and they wouldn't allow journalists from the international community to enter Gaza to document what is actually happening. It actually gives us the chance to actually speak up and to actually represent what is happening here ourselves. So a good part that has been actually developing in Gaza is that everyone is learning how to be a journalist. Everyone is learning that you are the voice of Gaza, you are the voice of Palestine, and you, as many languages as you know and excel, you got to use all of that to get the Palestinian voice amplified and reach out to the world. Unfortunately, as I told you, like I feel like we are being fought on so many levels. One of them is the media, and whenever you talk about the media is not always fair. Like even those people like from different outlets, they try to contact us, particularly in one numbers, and try to take testimonies from Gaza. When we send those, sometimes, and this happens, and I need to actually focus on it, is that they actually try to manipulate what is being said. They try to manipulate the questions. They're trying to just take what they want. They try to focus on whatever they like need to support whatever they believe in, and then they would ignore the rest and they would neglect the facts. So basically, as important as it is for us in Gaza, Palestinian youth activists, to be speaking out to the world, yes, we are doing our best to get the Palestinian voice amplified and reach out there, but we're actually using our own platforms right now. As I told you, we are doing our best to just be going live and on so many platforms, and we're trying to just reach to the world ourselves so that we make sure that we're not being manipulated, we're not being questioned, we're not the fact doesn't get changed or modified or whatsoever.
Well, thank you, Raid. I mean, just before I go on, there are a few points from people. Hala Shoman says, she's talking about war crimes. She says, Israel rejects the court's decision to probe alleged war crimes while they occupied the West Bank, Gaza, and East Jerusalem in the 1967 Middle East War. Alan says, a Le Monde journalist, a French journalist, Le Monde journalist, said that if it was the case that alleged Hamas staff were truly targeted by the Israelis, why did the Israelis warn them and bomb an empty building, if not to silence coverage of the attacks? Which is a very interesting point, of course, because as you all know, this is what keeps on being reported to us, that these buildings are being attacked because they're being used by Hamas, but then they tell people to evacuate them before they attack them. So that's quite a good point from Alan there. Ali Lipson has said, I have to leave, but I'm so thankful for the opportunity to hear all of you speak. Please keep working hard. Jewish people stand with you. God bless.
Can I just comment?
Yeah, also,
then we must move to Hala, but you please do. Yes, of course.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I just want to like put their small comment is that first you need to know that we don't always get warning when the bombardment happens. So in so many cases, like during this war, especially this war, we actually get bombed without any notifications, without any warning, without whatsoever. And sometimes when they actually want to bomb you, they would bomb you with a smaller bombardment before the bigger one comes. So don't get tricked. And the fact is, a lot of citizens, like most of the mortars here in Gaza, like they're citizens, they're children. I could give numbers, but I will leave that to Hala. So,
I mean, yeah, one of our very close friends at Palestine Deep Dive, a journalist, Mohammed Omar, who now works for the United Nations. He's won awards for his reporting, a very brave young man. I've known him for 10, 15 years. His family home was attacked last week, just blown up. And fortunately, you know, his mother was with someone else and he was not in Gaza. But it bears out all that you're saying. Hala, if I might come to you and you just tell me if, if this is not really something that you have been following. But I mean, it's a question that's being raised around the world. You're seeing enormous outpourings of international solidarity, but there's a lot of questioning about the attitude of some governments in the Middle East, not least those that have already signed agreements. I think they were the Abraham Accords. They were called as the Trump Accords with the UAE, with Bahrain, with Morocco, with South Sudan. What do people feel about these governments and these peace deals, even though none of those countries we just talked about then have ever been at war with Israel? What do people think about the lack of solidarity from those governments?
First of all, we need to understand that the Israeli occupation and colonizing power is very powerful, has a very powerful place in the Middle East, and some of the governments are very much interested and have some connections and relations with them, funding, formulation equipment. As we know, Israel is the one of the most powerful advanced military power, and not just that, it's one of the best exporters of military in the world, that has export military equipment, which is it's battle tested, so it has been tested over our bodies, killing us. Among that, there is the economic advancement and everything. So those countries, governments of those countries have so many interests that they might want to be in agreements with Israel. That's what they did. That was very much disappointing for us as Palestinians. Anyone who have like a little bit of justice in their mind, or believing in human rights, and that a population of people shouldn't live under apartheid state, under colonization. However, we know that those governments are all complicit, also dealing in a bad way with their own communities. And we're calling the communities not to accept that and reject it. Many of those countries have already been in demonstrations since the agreement and normalization happened with Israel. And we have seen also those countries going outside, rejecting the occupation, the apartheid, calling for freeing Palestine from the occupation, and also calling for rejecting and stopping the normalization between their governments and the Israeli colonial state. So we're happy that the communities are moving. We're happy that they're becoming more and more aware. They're happy that they are rejecting the decisions of their governments, the decisions that were taken without their acceptance or approval. And we're wishing that those governments stop the agreements between them and Israel. As you said, I'm a Palestinian. I'm not a politician. I'm a normal person living in Gaza as a refugee. I don't have much political knowledge. However, every Palestinian within Palestine is politically oriented, because our personal life is political all the time. Since 73 years old, since the occupation and colonization started, every person has become political.
I mean, for people seeing the situation unfold in Gaza and right across Palestine, people who have been around longer say, oh, well, this happens quite regularly. There's an uprising, and then the Israelis, they call it, the Netanyahu and his people, they call it mowing the grass. But what seems to be different this time is that this revolt is happening right across the occupied territories, Gaza and the West Bank and East Jerusalem, and in Israel. And it's a very, very powerful, deeply rooted response, it seems to me. So from where you are, you can't travel, you can't go to Jerusalem, you can't go to Jenin or Nablus or Hebron or any of these places, but are you able to communicate with other friends and colleagues and people elsewhere in occupied Palestine? Can you see what's happening elsewhere right across Palestine?
Okay, thank you, Mark. First of all, I'm sorry, I don't know about the situation around me with huge bombardment just a minute before. If my family came to evacuate or something, I will let you know. However, going back to the question, what's happening now all over the historical Palestinian occupied land is something admiring. The Israeli occupation have been trying to segment the Palestinian land in a military way since 1948. They have called Palestinians living in 48 areas as Arabs. They called the West Bank people as West Bank Palestinians, and people living in Jerusalem as East Jerusalem Arabs also. And Gaza have been called as like Hamas or something. So they're trying to remove our identity. They're trying to take that from us. At the same time, we're seeing now is that the situation that started in Sheikh Jarrah with the ethnic cleansing attempts of the Israeli occupation and the Israeli court decision to remove 28 Palestinian families from their residential places, their homes that they lived in by force and by attacks, and to put the illegal settlers in their places. At the same, they were having so many attacks over them. Peaceful, lovely worshippers in our holiest month in Ramadan in Jerusalem, Al-Aqsa Mosque. And that in Palestine and all over the world, very much angry. How could such illegal attempts happen in 2021 and no one moves? So people in all Palestine have started to move. It wasn't like a united decision, but it was a personal decision that was taken from each person, and it showed unity. Like Barghouti said, it might be intifada, it might be uprising. What's happening now? It's just collectively, all Palestine, we're rejecting the occupation, we're rejecting the colonization, the apartheid state, this illegal and continual aggressive behaviors on all the Palestinians and the silence of the world. We don't accept the silence anymore. And we don't accept the terms that the silence accept IDF. They are not defensive forces, they are occupation forces. We don't accept conflict, it's not a conflict. It's occupation and occupation of Israel, occupied territory, it's oppressors and oppressed, it's colonial power and colonized population. So we're changing the narrative. No, we're not changing it. We're reviving it. We're saying it loudly now. And everyone's listening and people are using this narrative finally. Genocide, apartheid is used. Palestine is used. End of colonial occupation and settler colonial occupation. So it's changing.
Hala, it's fascinating what you're saying, because I'm thinking as you're talking about the Western media and the British media and what I've been listening to, and very often it's reporting of equals in conflict, as though somehow Palestinians and Israelis are equal, and equal numbers of people are being killed on both sides, which is nonsensical. But also, interestingly, from what you were saying too, about how people are referred to. So on the BBC last Sunday, we did hear referred to Israel and fighting against Gaza. We heard about Israeli Arabs, and we heard about Palestinian Arabs. Everything that you've just said, we have been hearing in our media. So it's very, very powerful, that. And so thank you, actually. Thank you very much for that, because I think that establishes in our minds this reality. Are you having to Hala? We may have lost Hala there. Hopefully she's safe, and hopefully we can come back to her. But Bahzad, as we're waiting to see what's happening there, I wonder if I could come to you, because when I was growing up, I remember in Rhodesia, the white settlers, they thought their lives would never change, that there would never be majority rule. They were very surprised when they were criticized, and it was the same in South Africa. Do you have any hope that Israelis themselves are now being persuaded that this situation cannot continue, this occupation cannot continue? Or do you see that actually more Israelis are falling into this hard line camp of refusing to admit that this occupation cannot continue? What do you think?
Yeah, I have a hope. I have a hope that things are changing, and this hope is based on a current evidence. For example, we have seen multiple Jews in America and in Europe that are stand with Palestinians, that are inviting other Israelis to stand with Palestinians. Also from inside Israel itself, they were marching that, and this is not new. It's known that some of them, even if they were few, they are going now. Now they are listening and hearing the other side of the narrative that Hala talked about. I believe that they are going to be convinced. I know that there's sometimes that the hard truth, it's difficult to believe, but what Israel is doing right now is not about politics. Is what IDF, what the political forces in Israel is doing is not about politics. It's not about religion. It's not about ethnicity. And this has been shown. By the solidarity from Arabs inside Israel, from some Israelis themselves, and also from people all over the world. Another point is that um, in London, for example, last week, though there was more than 150,000 people who went out to stand with Palestine. This we won't see this in the past, and this is happening all over the world. So this change is a promising, is giving hope for our resistance, for our hard work, for our refusing to be oppressed, for our refusing to be occupied. I heard a British in a march stand with Gaza. He said this literally: "Your fight is inspiring. It gives hope." So I believe that there are many nations, many people around the world that need this hope to change their reality. And when they found that we are achieving and making changes in our cause, this is amazing. This is fascinating that they can also have this change. They can speak from one to one, from east to middle to west, and then people inside Israel themselves can finally be guaranteed that this must have an end, that Palestinians are not a second class humans, that they should have equal rights, they should have the very basic human rights. This is my answer.
Thank you, Bahzad. I mean, there's going to be another huge demonstration in London this coming weekend, we understand. And last weekend, as you said, well over 100,000 people in London, 88 separate demonstrations across the UK. That's just one country. And this is happening right across the world. There is an enormous amount of solidarity. And by the way, we lost Hala there. Hala, welcome back. You said the area was again heavily bombarded. And of course, you know that well, I mean, this is kind of real time, and this is what is actually happening. This is the truth, and it's absolutely shocking and appalling. And I suppose what I'd like to do, if I can, because sadly we have to conclude in a few minutes. You know, I wanted to try and sort of leave on if it's possible, on an optimistic note. And to be fair, you know, just then, what you were saying, Bahzad, was very optimistic in terms of solidarity. But if I could start with you, right, and just briefly, all three of you, what do you want to see from the international community? And what do you want to see from everybody out here in the rest of the world who supports the cause of Palestine? What would you like us to be doing? Raid, can you give us an idea?
Yeah, definitely. I would love for the word to actually share our stories. We actually have been writing a lot of stories, especially during this time, because as I said, we are not numbers, and we're trying to get everyone's story out there, and we're trying to get the word to learn more about the situation, to be educated. We're trying to get the word that they can actually support us in many ways. Like, please boycott Israeli products, join the BDS movement. Please, you can always actually take action. You can always see like how you actually can make Palestinian life better, because every Palestinian life matters. I think that the action that has been going on around the world right now is really good. But as for the future, I hope that one day we can actually get Israeli occupation held accountable to its crimes and its massacres. As we always say, ICC for Israel. So please, everyone, don't stop right there, because if you stop, that means more of us are going to be killed. Right is going to be killed, his family is going to be killed, everyone here is going to be killed. So keep the support, keep the love, keep spreading the truth, keep taking action, keep protesting, and let's free Palestine, let's free Gaza. Gaza doesn't have to be under this Israeli blockade. Still, I mean, it's been over 15 years, that's enough. And I think, as Bahzad said, we all deserve to live in peace and love, to have human rights. We're not asking for too much, we're just asking for human rights.
Thank you, Raid. Hala, the same question to you, if I may.
Yeah, thank you, Mark. As Raid said, the most important thing is to deal with us as humans. You've all have seen us, you know our faces, you know our voices, and this is three of more than 2 million people are being under all aggressions for more than 73 years. And we need all of you to remember us, not to forget us if the situation gets a little bit eased on the media, but not on the reality, because we're on a continuous situation of aggression. The most important thing is to ask the government to stop funding Israel. Those funds and those taxes that everyone pays are killing each one of us. Including our children, are fund military equipment that's been marked as the battle tested. So stop the funding. U.S. itself annually fund the Israeli military army $3.8 billion. This is just a year. And this is the first thing. The second thing we need is to continue with this, continue with education, with awareness, with going for demonstrations, continue for fighting and going us, send your tell them about the situation. I'm sorry, it's getting louder and louder. Continue this marching and going us out for all of us. Free Palestine, to end the apartheid and to end the situation. Try to press your governments to stop, to put sanctions on Israel so they can stop the apartheid and the situation. And don't forget that the UK had the first hand on this colonial situation in Palestine. They were the government that promised Israel this land as their nation land, and they started all of that. So the UK have the best situation to stop all of that, and they should be at this. And please, everyone, don't forget what Albert Einstein have once said: this world wouldn't be distracted by people who are evil, but either with those people who are silent while all of that is happening around them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hala. Thank you very, very much. Bahzad, just to you, finally, if we may.
Yeah, my word would be for the people, especially in the West and the US. Please give yourself a space to hear the other side of the narrative. Do not allow yourself to be manipulated. I've always heard that West media don't allow for citizens to be manipulated, but the reality is that they have been manipulated all the last time, and this time the fact and the reality have been shown to them. Make like a little effort, ask questions. If you hear a report or news in the official media, now we have a strong in the social media. We have documentaries that it is evidence from all parts of the world. Just do a little research, ask questions, seek people who might provide you the second part of the story, people who might have the knowledge, because as my colleagues said, if you just easily hear the information or the news and accepted it, this very easily, I think you are contributing in the killing that is occurring right now. So my advice is give yourself this chance of hearing the other side, the other people. And if you ask me why, because a 73-year-old conflict that keep arising from time to time, that is not resolving this, there might be something special with it. There might be something wrong with the information you receive, and you need to hear the other side. There might be right and there might be honest. And I believe that we Palestinians, we are right and we are honest. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Bahzad. That's very, very powerful. Thank you. Ray, there's a well, actually, this is you. I invite you all to read our stories on we'renotnumbers.org and social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter and donate as well. Please do, everybody. And please share this far and wide. The edited version will be up. Shortened parts of it will be up. We want to get the message from all of our three wonderful guests today out as far and wide as is possible. We don't often hear from people, real people on the ground who have been battling away. We don't hear this. So it's very, very powerful. And thank you very much. You know, we have a situation whereby, you know, Raya's been under, you know, bombardment. So, you know, thank you very much for sticking through with all of us. Keep safe, all of you, and thank you very much.
Thank
Hala,
you, Mark.
You in particular keep safe, because it's been very difficult, and we thank you for bearing with us all throughout. Because, you know, we know that there've been bombs dropped near you. We can hear this. And thank you, Bahzad. Thank you, Raid, very, very much. And from all of us here at Palestine Deep Dive, thank you. Join us again, and solidarity. Thank you.
Thank you.